Yeah, well, welcome everyone. Welcome to today's briefing on the future of Drupal 7. So, big question for the community, what happens with the end of life coming for Drupal 7? So today we're going to outline what what's going on and what we're thinking about that. My name's Alex. I am marketing manager here at Compuco. So I've been organizing a lot of this stuff and kind of like putting together this webinar. And joining me today, I have Jamie, the CEO at Compuco, and also Josh from the core team. Jamie.
Oh yeah, just to say hi. Actually, I mean, I recognize a few faces here. Bit about myself. Yeah, I'm the CEO of Compuco. Been working with Civi, for the best part of 10, 15 years now, I think. Way back when. Yeah, and obviously, it's a really critical juncture, coming up in the next couple of months, as Alex is going to talk through. Just excited to kind of talk about some of the options and share kind of some of the things that we're doing as well. Josh, over to you.
Hey everybody, Josh Gowans with the CiviCRM core team, and yeah, excited to be here and work through some of these options. Like Jamie said, that these are this is what we're going to be faced with coming up with the Drupal 7 end of life. So excited to see what's out there.
Yes. Great. So, I mean, with everyone being introduced, and keep introducing yourself in the chat. But let's present like what the situation is, so we all know what we're talking about before we get into what the different options are. Look, I'm sure many of you are aware that yes, Drupal 7 end of life is coming, but at the moment there are over 3,900 CiviCRM sites that are still on Drupal 7. So that's over 42% of the community. So we are talking about a big proportion of the community right now are still on Drupal 7 sites. So clearly it matters what is happening with Drupal 7 to the community. And in terms of Drupal itself, it's like over 320,000. So an enormous amount of the Drupal community, beyond CiviCRM is on Drupal 7. So that's a question, for the broader Drupal community. What we're talking about today is what happens for the Civi community within that. And Drupal 7, of course, remains a very robust CMS. It's why we've used it for so many years. It's been a bit of a backbone for the Civi community. Clearly, it's the most popular option out there. It's powered so many extensions, so many features. It really has driven a lot of the innovation that has made Civi possible over the years. So really powerful, great CMS. But at the same time, as we've said, the end of life is coming. So that is coming on January the 5th of next year. And that's when there will be no more official security releases from Drupal. So at that point, you're left with, well, we need to have a secure framework as an organization with our Drupal setup. What do we do about it? And that's really what we're going to be talking about today. So we're going to go through like some of the options, and you'll probably recognize some of these from the blog post, but I think I'll hand over to Josh at this point, who's going to, talk a little bit about each one.
Yeah, so like Alex said, we've got this end of life coming up again in January. It's end of life for real this time though. And so we've got a handful of options that we're just going to run through. My guess is most everybody has looked at these at one point in time or another. But I think it helps sort of frame this discussion about this final option that we're going to discuss at length, this never-ending support. So we're just going to touch on a handful and then jump right into that. So obviously one of the big options is to migrate to Drupal 10. That's been out for a little while. Obviously, it's following on the heels of Drupal 8, Drupal 9, which are both big changes from Drupal 7. So we sort of view this option as a good option for organizations that need that extra layer, that sort of enterprise grade CMS that needs some new options and that have the budget to make this migration, okay? Because this is more than just a simple upgrade from Drupal 7 to Drupal 10. There's some organizations this is a great fit, but for others that really want to get more mileage out of their Drupal 7, this may not be the best option for them, okay? The next option is maybe a little bit more consistent with organizations that are deep into Drupal 7 that want to stay as on that platform for as long as possible, or want something as close to that platform as possible. And that's to shift over to Backdrop. I'm sure everybody's heard of Backdrop. It's a little bit smaller CMS than Drupal. It is gaining in popularity. And as Jamie said on the last call, probably if Drupal had honored their original end of life date, then Backdrop would probably be a much larger CMS today. But it is still a little bit smaller community. Nonetheless, it presents a really good option. There's a blog post on the website, civicrm.org, that sort of talks about Backdrop and how it can be used with CiviCRM and what it takes to migrate over to it. So it's a really good option. We view this more as a bit of an upgrade. Definitely, there are some changes in the Backdrop CMS, things that you have to pay attention to. Some theme work. Maybe you have to pay a bit more attention to the modules to make certain they're well supported, and that sort of thing. But this gets you pretty close to the functionality in Drupal 7. So this is an option as well. Third option, there are other CMSs in the market. WordPress has grown in popularity quite a bit in the CiviCRM community. Its functionality has really caught up dramatically to Drupal, and it is increasingly a viable alternative to Drupal. But it's definitely more of a full-on migration to a different CMS. The same applies, of course, to Joomla, another really nice CMS, but these are different frameworks, different workflows. You know, you have to reconsider your entire site basically and adapt them to these new CMSs. Both really good, but these are big transitions that will take some planning. These are full on. These would be full on projects, but they are options. Okay. The next option is an interesting one. The core team is actively working on reintroducing CiviCRM Standalone. That's very close to being stable and released, and so that presents a potential option for people that want to shift off of Drupal 7. It's not perhaps as complete a solution. If you're used to the integration with the CMS, it may not be as complete a solution, or there may be costs associated with reproducing that functionality through the APIs in CiviCRM with another CMS. That said, Standalone is going to present users with a really good opportunity to lose some of that technical debt and not have to maintain the CMS. So it is an option. It's right around the corner, but it's a bit different than going with any other CMS. And then lastly, there's this Drupal 7 never-ending support. And I think that this is going to be the thrust of this call, obviously, moving pretty fast because I think there'll be some questions around this. The idea behind the never-ending support is to really cater to those organizations that have made a significant investment in Drupal 7, that want to get the most value out of that as possible and really extend the life of their website and of their infrastructure for as long as they can. Is it never ending? All good things must come to an end. So I like to think of this as this gives you a really, really long runway to keep doing what you're doing in a safe, secure environment, while other options either present themselves, or you're able to explore these other options and really dive into them and undertake the project that needs to be taken. So this is a really, really good opportunity that is for people that again want to keep their setup and extend it as long as they can. It's backed by some pretty strong shops, Hero Devs and obviously Compuco, both seasoned shops. And I think that this is really a viable opportunity for folks that haven't seen this before or been exploring, ways to stay on the Drupal 7 platform. So it's pretty exciting. And at that point, I'll kick this over to Jamie.
Yeah, so thanks, Josh. Yeah, and I think it's just what Josh was saying here, which is that it's an option here, for those who perhaps have a more complex potential integration, with their CMS that exists already. They know that upgrade is going to be complex or time consuming. Maybe they've got some complex forms that don't easily migrate over to, you know, any of the other CMS platforms, or simply maybe just need more time. You know, it's kind of, you know, there's a fair bit of time before the end of life, you know, but decisions need to make quite soon. And if you've got a complex upgrade and a bit of work to do there, you know, this is quite a nice insurance policy, you know, to have, you know, and obviously can run longer than that. And we know that with some organizations, budgets can be constrained, and it could give you several years or more, you know, you know, to prepare those budgets, to save up, basically to do what might be necessary, just extending out the life of your investment and getting better value from it, which is great. So you know, in terms of how would it work, so it is an annual subscription, and what we've managed to do is, by negotiating with Hero Devs and saying, hey, you know, there's actually this really great community of CiviCRM sites, and there's a lot of Drupal 7 ones of them, and you guys want to offer your product to Drupal 7. It doesn't really cost you much more if you're doing this, but they didn't want the admin of dealing with lots of smaller sites, as it were, or a wide network of sites. So we kind of stepped in and said, okay, if we deal with some of the admin, can we bring the costs down? And so we've got a specially negotiated rate with them, which is basically an annual subscription. And we're also able to offer a discount code if you use the discount code that we've got here, from just to, you know, that's come from the CiviCRM, been pointed from CiviCRM and so on. And then basically the way that it works is that, you know, at the moment you can download Drupal 7 from, you know, drupal7.org or from the various repositories. You know, and obviously you can download CiviCRM from civicrm.org and the various repositories. Come the end of life, there won't be a new secure version of Drupal 7 coming from those repositories. You know, caveat with that there's an unofficial Drupal 7 team that's coming together potentially. But Hero Devs will then be offering, you know, a repository where they will be maintaining a version of Drupal and keeping it secure. It's not just Drupal core, though. It's not just Drupal. They'll also be maintaining just over 13,000 modules as well, to the same SLA, basically, that the Drupal security team has been doing as well. So in a way, you know, it's kind of like a commercial version of the support that, you know, the community's been kind of providing, you know, with, you know, guaranteed SLA contracts and etc., you know, behind it, which is, in some ways, it's more assurance than you get from the open source community in some ways. So which is great. And, you know, Hero Devs are obviously committing to this being, and I do use it in inverted commas, never-ending support, which is that they are happy to sign up for many years into the future. One thing to kind of keep in mind is that there does come a point where, you know, you have to start considering the dependencies, you know, PHP, MySQL, and things like that. So if things start to get a little bit more technical in that discussion, but we can kind of talk you through that. And similarly, you know, what's important is that you just don't, it's not just about having Drupal 7 or having Drupal 7's modules. There is also an aspect of ensuring that you have a compatible version of CiviCRM to work with it. And that's why we're calling this Drupal 7 NES for CiviCRM, because the package would include all of those things, you know, come the end of life, you know, with funding going back into the core team in order to continue that. So that's, you know, kind of the summary of it. Maybe back to you, Alex. No, we can't hear you, Alex. You're muted, I think, actually. Yeah. There you go. Caught out.
Yeah, the classic for these things. But yeah, so that's basically, I guess, kind of like a brief summary of the thing. And I'm sure lots of you have questions, so get ready in the chat or after to put them there, and we'll answer them best as possible. But really, this is kind of like a brief summary of the options as we see it. You know, all options here have their kind of the pros and their cons, you know, and really it is, you know, something that you want to think about. You might want to kind of have a look at different options and see which one is the best for you. So, you know, for something like, as we discussed, the NES is probably one of the easier options to kind of just go with things as are. But, you know, if you want to have that powerful CMS upgrade that Josh was talking about, certainly at an enterprise level, you might consider something else. So definitely one to think about. And really, yeah, I guess before we open up to questions, just if you are not sure, what to do, obviously, if you already have a partner, that's great. Talk to them about it and see what they think, because different partners are going different ways on this. It's not, there's not one agreed approach within the partner community about, everyone's going the same way. Everyone's kind of like trying different things, and some have gone, more to Drupal 10, others have gone more to like staying with D7. So yeah, if you want to, you have a preferred solution independent of a partner and you're not really sure how you're going to do it, again, reach out to the partner community about it. But I think the important point we're making here is that though there is still a good amount of time, as Jamie says, it is definitely the time to start thinking about what you're going to do, because, January can come sooner than you'd think. We're already in May, there's not even, a full year at this point. So certainly in terms of how budgets and implementations work, if you want to do a migration, you're definitely going to want to start thinking about that now. So yeah.
I can see Joe's put one question in the chat there about the rates and so on. So Joe, I think the thing to say about the rates is that, what we've managed to do, we don't set the rates, obviously. There's a rate that Hero devs have. And one important point, I think I mentioned it on the blog post and some of the other comms I've put out, is the fact that, a bit like looking at, flights, the closer you get to the day of the flight, the more they're going to be putting that price up. So what we're really trying to recommend to people is to kind of have those conversations early. So we've kind of, we had those conversations on behalf of some of our clients quite early and and secured things, for what we needed. But we're trying to recommend that others, kind of do the same, comparatively to give that runway. Yeah, exactly. So that, the prices can be very variable depending on what those numbers are. But what we've tried to do is secure something for the CiviCRM community that takes a certain amount off that in terms of what it looks like. So yeah, you said 250 for one site and 8,000 for 900 sites. So that may be considered affordable. That may be considered expensive, depending on what your thoughts are. And then we've got one from Karel here. What's the long-term strategy of CiviCRM standalone? That's probably a wider question.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good question. I'm happy to speak to it. Essentially, we view standalone as an opportunity to grow the overall CiviCRM ecosystem. I don't think anybody envisions a time where standalone replaces all of the other distributions, because certainly there's functionality where the integrations with a CMS make really, really good sense. There are no plans to try to duplicate all of that in CiviCRM. So I think going forward, in the future, we'll build out standalone, but we'll continue to support the integrations with the various CMSs, Drupal 7 included. If we think back, for example, on Drupal 6, I believe we supported it for 2 or 3 years after it was end of life. So this is something that we're already considering, because obviously we have 3,900 sites using the software. We can't just cut it off in January. So real quick, standalone is more of a growth oriented opportunity, we think. We don't see it as a full replacement for those organizations that are dependent on a CMS already.
Just try and catch up with a couple of the other questions, which is around which modules will be covered and why. So the SLA that Hero devs are offering is covering. So I think if you have a look at the Drupal module listings, they have kind of like a maintenance status. So actively maintain, minimally maintain, seeking co-maintainer, seeking new maintainer, unsupported. They're saying they're going to cover, I think it's everything except the unsupported module. So if it's currently covered, they would cover it. And when they say they cover it, and presumably that includes CiviCRM, Webform, CiviCRM, and all those integration modules as well. They're not saying they're going to fix bugs or issues with the modules. What they're saying is that they're going to cover it from a security perspective. So if there is a security issue with that module, they will fix it, patch it, and release a new version. And actually, the commercial model is such that they'll be actually paying back to the maintainers potentially, or fixing the modules themselves. And Hero Devs have contracted with a number of core maintainers of the Drupal 7 platform in order to be able to offer this and so on. So hopefully that's answered Luciano Carl's questions as well. And Jose's asked a really good question about, I'm a little confused about how do we fit into all of this. So Compuco don't provide the service. In fact, all we're doing is acting as a reseller for Hero Devs on behalf of the core team, because the core team doesn't really have the capacity to do the sales and the admin management. So we're kind of sitting in between and reselling, the Hero Devs product. And what the Hero Devs are kind of offering basically is a Drupal 7 version, which is maintained and secure. So, just to be clear, we're not going to host your site. We're not going to maintain your site. All we're going to do is grant you access to a secure version of Drupal 7, which, to be fair, at the moment, you do get pretty much for free, because that's the wonderful thing about open source. But here, paying into the pot, Hero Devs will then make that available to you. And all we're doing is providing the administrative side of things. So John's asked a good question here. Original D7 end of life was February 2019. Yep, a little while ago. Extending the runway for people to migrate off. Commercial option for community, but this runway is already incredibly long. If people haven't moved off Drupal 7 after 5 years of warnings, it really is time to think and look at updating. I think Drupal 7 is great, but software can't be maintained forever. Yeah, potentially. I think, John, I mean, talking to that from a personal perspective, I think the aspect of that is that, obviously software can upgrade and will iterate. I think what happened with Drupal was that it was a hard change. I don't want to say fork because that's the wrong terminology to use, but it was a hard change, which basically needed a rewrite of everything without an upgrade path, which needed a migration. And I think that's the big difference here, which has kind of delayed it for a lot of people, because if you made those investment in product and have processes that working, it's substantial organizational and financial upheaval to make that shift. So not a lot of products require that in order to move to the next version. And also, our experience a little bit, I don't want to talk too negatively about experiences with Drupal 8 to 10, etc. But with the clients that we did make that move to, because Drupal was iterating every year, I understand now that it's moved to every 2 years, you actually had a substantial upgrade cost every year in order to stay with the latest version of Drupal. And so in some ways, those that stayed with Drupal 7 managed to avoid that by staying more reliably if they were happy with what they had. Now, obviously, if you want new features, then those are kind of more readily available in Drupal 10. And Luciana, that's a good point where you're saying, like, where are the new features coming? The new features are coming for D9, D10. So, if you're looking for AI integration, I've seen some cool stuff happening there, and layout builder and things like that, then D9, D10, it's got a lot of, very cool stuff going on. But if you have something that does what you need, then that's a different equation. And Joe asked a very good question. That's probably one for Hero Devs. And as to David, no, I don't think it's lower than 250. So I think if it's 250 direct, then that's not what we have with them. So in which case, that's a great deal. But so reach out to us. We'll find out the latest pricing with Hero Devs. But alternatively, obviously, everybody's very welcome to go speak to Hero Devs directly. I think what we're trying to do is wrap that up with the CiviCRM side as well. And I don't know, Joe, whether that also included all the modules as well. Yeah, and I don't know if we've sort of got through the questions. I don't know if there's any other.
Yeah, we've still got a couple of minutes left if people want to ask some extra ones.
Yeah, so one of the things to consider with the 8 to 10 is the continual upgrades, and it has been a little bit. We found it for the clients who have stayed with Drupal 7. It's been less, I would say. And yeah, Joe, that's the concern with the Drupal 7 modules, that people would no longer maintain them, but obviously it depends what community. And one thing that's probably also worth mentioning, we didn't touch on very, very quickly, is the fact that there is an unofficial Drupal 7 security group that's also popped up with intention to continue to maintain core. So there are other options as well that aren't commercial options, potentially. So those might be free options, but obviously those come with more risk than having a dedicated SLA, with a company that does this as their core offering. So Tim's just asked about the rates again. I think the best thing to do is to get in touch, so we can work out, because it's quite a complex calculation, and and also, as we said, here at Des might be changing their prices as we go into the future. So, if we put something out, the worry is that everybody relies on that, expects that. So it's better to have those conversations one-to-one. I think that's going to be all we have time for. Do feel free to add any questions, comments on the blog post on civicrm.org. Alex and I and Josh will be checking that. You can reach out to us in Mattermost as well. And obviously, if you are interested in the D7 NES for CiviCRM option, please do get in touch. Do all we can. And thanks so much for joining.
Thanks so much. And yeah, this is definitely a topic that will continue to come up throughout the year, and will be continuing discussions. So. Everyone.
Thanks all.